All right, so it looks like we've got some people filing in here. So I want to welcome everybody who's joining us tonight, our Working with Vasculitis webinar. We're super pumped for this. We'll just give everybody here a minute or so to, I know we've got people filing in as we speak. So for everyone who's already in, want to thank you all for joining us. We're really excited. We've got our whole panel highlighted here. We've got a panel of 5 strong, which I'm excited about, and really looking forward here to the next hour. So just a few things we'll hit off the top while everybody kind of gets settled and in. My name's Ben Wilson. I've been working with the VF since shortly after I was diagnosed, actually back in 2017. So thrilled to be helping to lead this tonight. And first off, just some of the housekeeping stuff. We want to make this super interactive with everybody who's taking the time out of their busy days to join us tonight. So we've got, if you go to the More tab, the 3 dots on the bottom right of your Zoom app, we've got a Q&A box down there. So we certainly want you guys, any questions that you have as we start talking, and we're going to all introduce ourselves here in a second. Feel free to hit that Q&A. Any questions that you have, we are hoping to make this as much of an interactive event tonight. So feel free to ask all those questions. If you would like the closed captioning as well, that's also on that. You go down to that More, those 3 dots tab, and it's right there just below the transcripts box at the second one from the top. So we've got the captions there as well, and that's available for you too. And also there's a separate chat feature right next to the participants tab there at the bottom. If you'd like to, you can use that. That's just the general chat feature as you see with all these Zooms and whatnot. So we're excited for this. None of us have any disclosures or anything. So we're all open books here today, and we're kind of all over the place, geographically speaking, life speaking, job speaking. And so I think we've all got really good, unique perspectives here to share tonight. So I'll just kick it off just briefly talking about myself, and we'll introduce each and every one of us here coming up. So like I said, I'm Ben, and I'm based kind of split back and forth between Las Vegas and San Diego. I'm in San Diego right now, and I was diagnosed with EGPA vasculitis back in 2014, back when I was in college. So last summer celebrated my 10-year anniversary, so to speak, of diagnosis. And for me, I work in the sports broadcasting field. So there's vasculitis. I mean, it impacts me pretty much in every way because I'm an independent contractor. I probably work for 5 or 6 different networks throughout the year, both in play-by-play, commentary, as well as studio hosting as well. So there's a lot that goes with that. I mean, insurance has been a nightmare for me with the drugs I've been on, whether it was Cytoxin at the start or now biologics I'm on here as we speak today. So just, we think about too, just what has, been the impact for me, and a big tip and adjustment that I've been forced to make since vasculitis has such a big impact for me. I've really tried just to, focus on what matters the most for me, like prioritizing, just understanding that, especially for me with the fatigue and the travel that is such a big part of my job, that I'm kind of putting the most important things first. And so if I know it's a really busy stretch for me in my career, in my job season, like I'm focusing on the work, and I'm, my family, my close friends, like they understand that. And I kind of make that known that, hey, there might be times where I've got to focus and put some things first. And then if I'm not forced to be super busy or in that sort of stretch, I can kind of focus on the things that I want to focus on and be able to do a lot of other things as well. So that's kind of how I generally phrase it. And we'll obviously get more into the nitty gritty and all that good stuff as we go. But that's just a little bit about me, and I don't want to keep talking. So we'll go on to the rest of our panel here. We've got Kara with us as well, and I'll send it over to Kara.
Hi, my name is Kara Kaplinger. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was diagnosed with GPA in 2023. I'm a second grade elementary school teacher here in Indiana. And my biggest kind of takeaway from all of this working with vasculitis has been to listen to my body and take a break ahead of time, or else my body will take a break for me and is guaranteed not to be at a good time. So I hope you all get something good from this.
And I think, yeah, we all feel the same way, listening to your body. Very, very, very much at the top of the prior list as well. Send it over to Eric next, who is part of our panel tonight.
Hi, yeah, my name is Eric. I was diagnosed with GPA almost a year ago, February 17th. So coming up on a year, I left work on the 17th or the 18th in the morning, and then didn't come back until late October, 1st of November. So it's been a long haul. So I think and I've been a firefighter for about 30 years come this May. So that's me, I guess. It's all new, so I don't know what else to say.
All new. No doubt. You have an amazing story, Eric, which we are going to get into as we continue. I'll go to Antoine next, and then we'll go to Darren to wrap it up after that. And Darren, you've got some great stuff to talk about as well. So I'll first kick it over to Antoine.
All right, thanks a lot, Ben. My name is Antoine Robinson, and I live in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I was diagnosed with GPA in February of 2023, and I work in the area of financial system of consulting. So one of the big adjustments for me with this diagnosis is being able to make sure I always put the first things first and the second thing second, kind of similar to what Ben said. I speak a lot during the day, so I try to make sure that I stage my days such that I get the big things done earlier. And then those administrative things that I need to do, I try to tailor those towards the evening when I'm losing the energy. And I learned the whole process of conservation of energy. I try to take frequent mental breaks, whether that's sneaking off to the loo, depending on which country you're from, or the bathroom in the U.S., and just taking a 5 minute siesta and coming back refreshed. So I'm going to pass it over to Darren. Go ahead, Darren.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darren White. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. I was diagnosed with GPA in August of 2022. I'm currently a civil servant here in Nova Scotia, where I've worked both in access to information and as a human rights officer. Previously, I was the supervisor of case management for one of the workers' compensation boards, where I handled all severe injuries and chronic illnesses and developed workplace accommodation plans. The irony is not lost on me that I ended up using those skills to help develop my own accommodations plan. In many ways, I think what's going on with me, health-wise right now is just a perfect example of living with vasculitis. When I proposed the idea for this webinar, I was feeling great. And right now things are not super great. I'm definitely feeling it and having to figure out how to manage work and life and participate in things like this. I do have some more things to talk about when we get to there, some interesting tools that might be helpful.
Yep, no doubt. And I think we all have, as you can, I think, all tell. And again, if you're kind of just joining us late, we've got this Q&A box as a reminder. I'd love everyone you can contribute, put your questions in for us. Really, there's no topic that's off limits. Anything you want to hear, we're more than happy to talk about. And I think no matter what the question is, at least one of us will have some sort of insight that is very valuable and specific to that. We talk about resources all the time. I think for someone like me who's been, it's been over 10 years since I was diagnosed, and there weren't a lot of resources at the time for me, and certainly stuff that I wish I had out there. And a lot of it was just kind of trial and error and figuring out what worked and what didn't, and understanding that I was just this, young guy wanting to get into the sports broadcasting business. So I never really felt in the moment, like I was comfortable sharing a lot of that stuff. And so I think the whole goal with having those experiences to sort of allow everybody to feel like they're comfortable being in their own skin and knowing the way to kind of navigate all of that. And so that's why I think of the first thing we can kind of talk about too is the tool, Darren, that you advocate for, been a big part of, and it's it might be a Canadian tool technically, but it's one that I think certainly can have a big impact for all of us, and is a good baseline, as you'll describe here, Darren, for things we can use going forward.
Yeah, if you give me a second, I'll share my screen and I'll just remind everyone you don't need to worry about the addresses for this tool. It's going to be coming out in a tip sheet that will come out afterwards, so you can sort of get the links directly from that tip sheet. Just give me a second here to share. There we go. I think everyone can see that now. So there's two tools from this organization, and you can see at the top, accommodating and communicating about episodic disabilities. And this is the result of a 5-year research project in Ontario. And the first tool, their original tool, is the one on screen right now, the Job Demands and Accommodation Planning tool, which is loosely termed JDAPT. There are two versions of this tool, and you'll see it's available in English and French. I love the fact that there's two versions. I was lucky enough to attend a presentation by the organization through the civil service, through the Nova Scotia Disability Employees Network, which I'm on the executive of. And the first version is the JDAP for workers. And that is a tool that's specifically designed whether or not you have an employer that is accommodating for each of us with a disability where you have periods of wellness and periods of less wellness, or even just general unwellness. You can work your way through this tool, and it will give you some really good ideas about things that you can do to help your day to day, week to week, and month to month in the workplace. Even though I have a very accommodating employer, I use the JDAP for workers fairly frequently just to remind myself of the things that I can do to make my life, better. The other one, you'll see it's called JDAP for organizations. Really, they're talking about workplaces. If you're lucky enough to have an employer that is willing to work with you, this tool will help an employer go through essentially the same things, but it will help them develop accommodations for you. So it really does depend on your comfort level and what organization you're working for, or workplace you're working for, and their comfort level or willingness to accommodate. But when you get the tip sheet and the links, I would strongly encourage everybody to go through at least the workers tool. And it's also interesting to go through the JDAP tool. But like I say, I come across lots of great things just in the workers version. The brand new tool that they've just released is this one, decision support for communicating about invisible disabilities that are episodic. Now, they say episodic, and we're not necessarily episodic, but sometimes we are. Nonetheless, what this tool does is it helps you to determine whether or not to share and what to share with others at work. It doesn't tell you what to do, but it takes you through several pages of questions and asks you to consider a number of different factors. And at the end, spits out a report that you can then read through, and it can help guide how you approach telling others at work. And this may or may not be important to any particular person. Like I say, I work in a very contemporary civil service environment, and in my particular office, they're very accommodating. But I know even in other offices in the civil service, it's less so. So depending on what your workplace situation is, what your relationship with your coworkers is, what your relationship with your boss is, this may help give you some understanding about how to approach those discussions if you want to have those discussions and what you might share. So those are the tools that I find great value in. I've shared them a lot within the civil service. I know that in the province of Ontario, they're well used, and I think they're gaining traction kind of across our country, despite the fact that they're, Canadian tools that they apply to everybody. And I would encourage you to go through them.
Yeah, they're really awesome resources. I'm so glad, Darren, you're able to share those with us. And I think we all have had our own experiences with trying to figure out, like, wading those waters of, all right, how do I do this? What do I share? When's the right timing? There's just so many factors along with it. I figured maybe we can go around to kind of talk, for all of us, I think we've had those individual instances. And then I think after that, we can start getting into the Q&A, because I see we've got some questions here queuing up. And again, if you've just joined us, anything you'd like to ask, we're open books here tonight for the next 45 minutes or so. So feel free to line them up there in the Q&A, and I think we'll start that after after this, but it is a good place, I think, to start, Darren. And I know we've got a couple people on the panel who've been more recently diagnosed. So I'm sure, like Eric, for someone in your shoes, there's probably there's really no choice, right? You kind of like, based on what you do and how physical of a job you have, you couldn't really hide something like that. And I'm sure, I would think in your line of work, they were very understanding in the firefighting world, but I'm curious how that went for you there, at least at the start.
So I was in the hospital for about 3 weeks, and it was probably towards the end of the third week when I sent an email to my chief for lack. I mean, I didn't the JDAP thing part of it was nice, but I mean, I was kind of an open book to him, and I wrote a letter, a long email. Nothing better to do, right, when you're sitting in a hospital bed, and just told him what was going on and what I had, and ask them to edit it and then send it out to everybody. I pretty much let everybody in the department know. There's 250 of us in our department, give or take, to let everybody know what was going on. So, because the fire department's it's a weird workplace environment compared to most places where we work really, really close with each other. I work with 3 people. I'm in charge of them, so I have 2 people as subordinates. And when I know everything about their life, and they know everything about my life. It's really like when they say, "Oh, the fire department's a big family." It really is a big family. So I let everybody know what was going on for me, just to make it easier when I came back, and I didn't want like the scuttlebutt, you know what I mean? Like, and I figured I never heard of this disease, and we do have a lot of paramedics and doctors that work with the department and stuff, so I thought this would be a good resource for me. And they were very, very accommodating. I mean, it's a union job, obviously, so I had a lot of sick time and benefits and stuff like that, which I think some people in different industries, might struggle against. They checked in once in a while. I checked in once in a while, but for the most part, I stayed out. I was hoping to go back quickly, but I learned from this disease doesn't necessarily let you go back to work as fast as you want. And I'm still trying to figure it out, like if it was more the disease or the medications to treat the disease that did the damage to my body. Because I thought I could get back. Let's say I went to the hospital in February. I thought I'd be back by July, and it wasn't even close. So, so one of the things I wanted to say to the people out there is we're talking about work and jobs and stuff like that. And when I kind of thought about this whole process was when the doctor flatly said, "No, you're not going back to work until like October, November." Then to me, it was like, okay, well, now my job is just to get better. And I looked at it that way, like, okay, I'm going to get better. Now, how do I get better? It's working out. Now, I'm not talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger workouts or anything like that, but it was like, I'm going to walk for 15 minutes. I'm going to ride a bike for 15 minutes. I'm going to lift light weights. It was more, just like, okay, this is what I'm doing every day, 2 hours a day, just to get my sanity, really. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is my job. And that's what I was telling people. My job right now is going to get back to work is that. And then, so that was the summer and the fall. And then when I went back to work, I mean, work was good. All they wanted was a doctor's note, which I didn't have to like do a test or something like that. It was just the doctor said I was good to go back to work. And then, other than that, they were fine. So, and I guess I forgot to say I'm in Maine, Portland, Maine, so it's cold and wet, and then I work on a fireboat, which is kind of unique to the industry of firefighting. So if anybody's got questions, I'm more than happy to answer them when we get to that point.
I mean, we could do it. I think we could do an entire webinar that's just you, Eric. Like, I find the whole thing fascinating. We could just, honestly, we could. It's, I
mean,
to have it.
I hear people saying the brain fog and stuff like that. So I guess I get that. I don't know. I mean, we work 24 hours at a time. So when I go to work at 8 in the morning, I get off the following day, 8 in the morning, and then I take a day off. Then I go back for another 24 hours with 5 days off. So I got plenty of time off. But when I'm at work, the brain fog type. So the department that I work for, and I can't say this about all the departments that are out there, they're pretty lackadaisical as far as like lunchtime-ish time. Like if you want to eat lunch and kind of like, you're not supposed to officially lay down in bed, but if you want to like get in a recliner and kind of close your eyes. So I definitely take advantage of that. I know,
Sure.
no, so that kind of helps. But then, we're there for 24 hours, so you got to be rested and ready, right? So I don't.
Just yeah, no, to say the least, you have to. And I'll echo what Christine here put in the chat. Thank you for what you do, first responder coping with vasculitis. I think we all, yeah, we all definitely feel the same way. It's a pretty, I think everybody individually, like if anybody who's had to deal with vasculitis, I think their own stories are very, unique and inspiring in their own way. And then I think it goes a step further when it's somebody like what you're doing, Eric. So yeah, thank you for sharing that, especially. I feel like, for you, with the way those hours are, like that's a challenge. I would,
Yeah.
I kind of throw, it's a different challenge, but for care, you being a teacher, like I'm not a morning person. I don't know how you do it. And then you're dealing with, with elementary school kids at the same time. So from the whole dialogue aspect, trying to figure out like how you communicated you're having vasculitis with administrators and the way the schools work. How did that all go for you?
I'm very fortunate in the fact that I already had a bunch of sick time banked up just from being a teacher. So thankfully, I could take 7 months off and get paid for that because of all of my sick time. And I realized that I'm privileged in that. There's a lot of people that can't do that. So after 7 months, when I went back, I had to meet with my building principal at the time. And she said, what do you need to come back? And honestly, she didn't think I was coming back. And so she was like, yeah, I didn't think you were coming back. So you have to tell me what you need. I have no idea what you need to be successful. And so I was a little bit like, oh, okay. You thought I wasn't coming back. Well, I need extra bathroom breaks and I need to be able to sit down at my table more and not walk around as much as I used to. If my teammates can take my kids back and forth to specials sometimes, I'll do something for them in return, grading or what have you. But, those long, long walks across the building, 7, 8, 9 times a day, was going to be really physical taxing. And so I was fortunate that my coworkers would stop by and say, hey, I'll stop by the copier and pick up your stuff. Do you need anything? How are you feeling today? Do you need a bathroom break? And even today, after going back to work, they still check in on me on a regular basis. So I'm very fortunate, but I also, have to ask for help sometimes. And that has been really challenging as just an independent adult person. No, none of us wants to have to ask for help from our coworkers for things that we feel like we should be able to do. But when you have vasculitis, you have to be willing to ask for help.
100%. And it's great for both, especially you and Eric, the jobs you're in, that you have such a tight knit, close family who's been super supportive for what you've been able to do. I think that goes such a long way. We get into me and Antoine, over here who are we're traveling. I can't help but laugh because my own journey, it's kind of been crazy, and we work with so many different people. So I think we've got some similarities probably in our journeys here, Antoine. I'll let you take the floor first. Where for us, it's maybe not as cut and dry, but that doesn't mean we haven't found ways to navigate around that.
Absolutely, Ben. I mean, in the nature of the work I do as a financial system consultant, I have two groups of people I deal with. I deal with my core consulting team, and I deal with clients. So the core consulting team rotates individual in and out. So for me, it's a matter of I have a core group of people that I can buy in, I can trust, and they know what's going on. And so I think Eric was alluding to it earlier. You get the brain fog. Some of you guys are familiar with the brain fog, where you know what you want to say, you know exactly how you want to say it, and it just doesn't come. Well, I've worked close enough with people where they know my part of my nature of my job, and so they're able to kind of cue me so I can remember what I was trying to say, and that kind of helps me with the brain fog, which usually gets worse as the day go on. But you manage it, like I mentioned before. I try to front load the day, trying to get those things that I need to get done first, and then those things are more like administrative type or travel type. I try to schedule it. I travel a lot, so I have to be able to maybe travel the day before so I can rest up for the next day, or not make it so compact where I'm traveling the day of because you consume so much energy. And then also, just with the clients, as you get comfortable with them, I don't share my complete story unless somebody happens to stumble across it on the VA or something, or they see the videos, some videos that I've been in, and then we may have a dialogue. But I don't disclose it a lot to the clients because I'm there to do a job. So it's more really my core team, those people in my network, and just making sure that they know that when I'm just having a rough day, I may be a week or two that I may work remote versus traveling, which is an option for me as well. Oh, well, it was it was as of December 31st. January's new policies are in place, so a little interesting with the travel there, but nevertheless, you manage it, and the key is just managing it. There will be good days, there'll be some great days, and there'll be some not so good days. So on the great days, I try to maximize it, but not too much because I learn my boundaries and my roadblocks. Where I know if I overdo it, then I'm going to pay for it for 2 days or 3 days. The not so good days, I just try to get through the day in terms of administrative things, lower priority type things. And then the okay days, I try to mix it with a little things here and there. So that's kind of typically how I navigate vasculitis from a professional travel perspective. Ben, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, and I think it's a great way you phrase it. I mean, you saying that, it harkens me back to being maybe 2, 3 years out of school, and having not called a lot of games and being super young in my industry. You get these opportunities that would really excite you, right? And I didn't have a lot of experience doing it, and you want to prove to yourself, prove to everybody that you can perform at a network sort of level. And I'll never forget calling a game in Vegas before I moved out there. This was probably 2017, and just being building it up so much and working so hard on the prep. And I think it was 2 games in 2 days, college basketball, and I just remember getting back to the hotel, and I think I slept like 16 straight hours. Like, I was just out, and I realized, like, this isn't repeatable. I can't just every game. I mean, I'm calling 60 games a year, and then I'm hosting a bunch of shows on top of that. Like, I can't just every single day I'm working, lay it out to that degree where I'm gonna have to sleep the whole rest of the day, or I can't even get out of bed for 2 or 3 days. Admittedly, for me, like, there are definitely stretches, like when I call college basketball in March, and I do a lot of the conference tournaments, and for me, that's my biggest couple weeks of the year. Like, our games get picked up. Some of them get picked up on ESPN nationally, and for us in our industry, that's a really big deal. And we're on the air till 11:30, 12, midnight a lot of nights, and I'll be up till 3 a.m. And then you got to wake up and do it all again the next day. So those for me are definitely like, I still have times, even though I feel like I've really got a good handle on my disease now. But I also have those stretches where you kind of just have to what we've been saying. I think all of us is, like, you listen to your body and you understand. All right, I need a day here just to, like, lay in bed, and I'm not going to feel guilty or like I'm lazy or inactive. Like, this is just the reality, of my disease. And I think just to kind of add on to just what we were also talking about, just how you handle that dialogue with your employers and stuff like that. Like, I was a senior in college, so when I got my first job and was interviewing, I mean, I was making $20,000 a year to work in Moberly, Missouri, lovely tiny town in rural north central Missouri. I did not tell my boss. I mean, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't know a lot about the disease yet. I was young. I just wanted an opportunity. So, and really, none of the jobs I've ever had, it's not like it's ever come up. I've never mentioned it. I remember being maybe 6 months into the first year of the job when I actually, I had to take time off. I had to fly out to Denver to go to National Jewish, where I was starting to get. That was when Nucala was approved back then, and I was getting administered to start taking that drug. And at that point, I kind of had to explain why I needed time in the middle of busy season to go out to Denver for a day. And it's one of those things where I never really felt like I wanted to share. And then once I got to a point where I felt comfortable within each of the respective networks I worked at, and I could trust those people, then I opened up. And in every single situation, they were super accommodating. And honestly, it saved me in a lot of ways because, I had just had a long conversation with my boss at the the TV network I worked at in Vegas, as COVID was starting to become a concern. And, they took care of me. And I had coworkers who weren't as lucky, who got kind of just on the chopping block. But because I trusted them and I was more open about it, that was certainly, we hope, a one-off for all of our lifetimes. But that was a classic situation of them saying, hey, like, you go home, you do what you got to do. You're at high risk. Take care of yourself. We'll, you do great work. We'll be there for you when we're able to bring you back. And I think that's kind of how you can see an example of where that, where that dialogue can help you out as an employee down the line. And so they're maybe not as blindsided by it when there is a big sort of thing that comes up. Again, hopefully not COVID again for any of us in our lifetimes. Did you have anything, Darren, to piggyback off that? We kind of started the topic with you on that just before we move on to some of our Q&As.
I think we covered that pretty well, actually. I think we heard a diversity of things. I suffer from some of the same things that everyone's talked about. Like Antoine, I guess I do have a little bit to add. In the job I have right now, we're responsible for 5 different pieces of legislation, all very intricate acts with lots and lots of ins and outs and interpretations. And there are absolutely days when I cannot get into the deep, dark depths of those acts. And that's when I do, the administrative stuff, the filing stuff, that other stuff. And then on the days when I'm feeling well, I usually aim to sort of get into that stuff first thing in the morning. Like Antoine, again, that's when I'm at my best. And I kind of have a rule. I don't send emails after 3 p.m. Just because I know that I'm not at my best and I'm not entirely sure what's going to go out. So I don't send emails after 3 p.m. and I don't do anything of great significance towards the end of the workday.
That's a good way to phrase it as well. All right, we've still got plenty of time here, about a half hour left. So any questions you guys have, I'll just start with kind of the order they've been coming in, and we'll go somewhat. We'll try to cover these as well as we can here. And the first one I was seeing was from Sedate. I apologize if I'm saying your name, but you got give me the thumbs up, so I got it right. Okay, that's like 90% of my job is just not butchering kids' names and then having parents get mad at me. So I'm glad I got your name right. About how we deal with medication side effects and work. So yes, that is a very good one for medication side effects. Anybody feels very strongly have a strong experience with that and how it's impacted their work?
Yeah, I do. Methotrexate and I do not get along well. And in fact, the day after, methotrexate for me is something that happens in the evening, and then the next day, I feel absolutely dreadful with a lot of kind of stomach upset. And the day after is kind of like a recovery day, and then 3 days later, I'm sort of back to normal. So my workplace accommodation is actually that I work from home on those 2 days. And there's an understanding that, again, I'm not going to take on anything super hard, particularly so for me, it's the Wednesday, Thursday. So I do tend to save up a lot of administrative stuff and little things. And there's aspects of my job that are just kind of responding to public bodies. I save those for Wednesday and somewhat Thursday. But that ability to not have to sort of get up and dress up and shower and drive to work and just sort of be able to start my day and work from home gives me that extra energy I need to make it through that work day. So that's how I handle the medication and work.
As someone who now gets to do a lot of studio shows remotely, I mean, the difference between that at like 7 a.m. and waking up at 5 to put on a full suit and go into I'll take the remote show any day to what Darren's talking about. Eric, anything for you on that with how physical and just demanding, not only just from a logistical standpoint, but also just the mental aspect of how long your guys' shifts are. Have you noticed anything with that here? I know it hasn't been
Hasn't been a long time for me. I mean, I've taken prednisone still. I'm still doing the prednisone routine. So, but as far as and then the Rituxim, I haven't been to work yet and have to deal with that. I'll find out in March. I can get back to you in March, I guess. But So I haven't really hadn't noticed anything medication wise for me. So
I'm sure that answer in March, yes, will be very will be very long.
I'll find out like in March because I did have it. I mean, September I had Rituxim, and I think like 2 days later I kind of got kind of worn out and tired. But my doctor let me go to Spain, so I recovered in Spain. So it was beautiful.
Hey, that's one way to recover. I'm jealous of that. Kara, Anton, anything you wanted to add? I'm lucky that I'm on biologics now. It's really just fatigue for me, and it's kind of just managing. Anytime I'm on the air, you just know there's going to be adrenaline, and so for me, it's really just kind of managing like those shoulder times of not overdoing it, like just kind of helping myself prepare mentally for that. But as far as the specific medications, I'm fortunate. The drugs I'm on don't cause a whole lot of side effects, just beside the fatigue. I don't know if either of you two have had different experiences either.
I was on Cytoxin when I first started, and the fatigue and some of the stomach issues that came along with that, I would not have probably been able to have worked at that point. But I am off of that. I'm off of prednisone. I was able to work on Tabneo, so I didn't have any issues with that. I'm done with that too, and I'm just on rituximab. And other than like feeling fatigued, I can't tell if that's the rituximab or if that's just the vasculitis, or just, my energy is low. But yeah, definitely some drugs make it easier to work than others, definitely.
Yeah, and I think for me, Ben, currently I'm on no medication, so I'm not doing IV treatments, nothing. So my doctors are kind of monitoring me, and I do a lot of natural things, natural vitamins, diets, things like that, just to help boost my immune system. But currently, they're just monitoring me. So if I ever feel that I'm getting too fatigued or too worn out, then we'll revisit the IV treatments with the rituximab. But right now, I've been medically free for 7 months now, 8 months. So, and it's going pretty good. Like Eric, I try to increase my endurance, exercise, light weights, whatever. Just note to self when you're doing exercise, keep in mind that your body has to adjust because I just tweaked my back like 7 days ago. And that's just doing light exercise. So little things like that. But otherwise, right now, I just try to manage the disease and just kind of go from there.
We're hoping it stays like that, Antoine. That's awesome that you're at that level. And we'll go through. I will go right back to you because we've got a question here from Mindy about how do you manage traveling and working face to face while being immunocompromised. That's kind of right up your alley.
So right now it's a juggling act. So the travel piece, I try to manage the travel by trying to book my travels in advance so I can get to where I need to go early so I can get the necessary breaks and rest I need. I haven't ran into a situation yet where I needed to travel the same day of, so we'll see how that works out when I cross that bridge. Being immunocompromised, when I travel, I wear masks to the airports and stuff because I try to do the risk reward kind of thing. Airports, different places, high risk places. When I'm on the job site, depending on what I'm doing and who I'm working with, if it's a one-on-one situation, I may or may not have a mask on. If I'm working with a lot of people, close up, small quarters, you know, it just kind of depends. So again, I'm running into all these situations now, and I'm just managing them. And knock on wood, right now, I had no situations where I've gotten sick. Hadn't had COVID yet, knock on wood, or anything like that. So it's just been kind of a journey, and I proceed cautiously. It's just really what I do. At the airports, I'm usually not really around the gates with everyone. I kind of linger over to that other side enough where I can just hear the gate being called, and then when I get on, I have my mask on, I get off, turn the air vents on, stuff like that. I just monitor it and manage it. If I feel myself getting a little sick, I may pop some emergencies, kind of immunobooster kind of things, just to keep my immune system up. But right now, it's been working for me for the last 8 months.
That's awesome. Yep. And I mean, just for me, like it's weird to say this. It's honestly more about when I get back. Like I've had so many of these, so often for me, I've noticed like when my body, it just, when you're out of your normal routine and you're on the road, like your body has this weird way of just kind of putting on blinders and kind of making it work, especially when you're calling games and you got to just be on. And that's how it is. And it's almost like you can't take no, or you can't take sick for an answer. For me, it's really just kind of understanding if I'm starting to feel that way and sort of knowing, all right, like this is what I've got coming up. When I get back, I need to make sure, as we've been talking about, like I need to prioritize the right way so that I'm not like trying to go straight into the next project, and I'm giving myself some time to come down from it. Just that's at least how it's how it's been for me. And again, we've still got some time here, so feel free to send send your questions in. And want to thank everybody who's been participating so far with the questions and the chat. Great comment from Christine that I think we all can relate to. Christine, you're in Wisconsin right now, which is where I'm from originally. So I'm from the Milwaukee area. So we've got yes, the what is it, St. Croix, right on the St. Croix Falls, right on the Minnesota border. And in addition to, if you go through the chat, Jennifer put the link that Darren shared to the IDAPT program. That is in the chat if you want to see that and check that out. So thank you, Jennifer, for putting that in there. Next question is from Kayberg, who's joining us from Memphis, and this is a really good one. I think Darren, a good question for you to answer. If you openly share about your disease with your boss, can they hold that against you later, or is our job protected since it's a rare disease, even if you are in an at-will state? That's a great question, one that I don't know that I really have the answer to, but since I'm a contractor, I get insurance through the state exchange. Like technically in my world, if employer didn't feel comfortable with me calling games because of my disease, theoretically, yeah, they could say, yeah, if you're sick, we're not hiring you. There were probably some times where I should have called in sick that I didn't, because I didn't want to get labeled that way, as with how uber competitive our industry is. But having said that, Darren, my industry is probably not like a lot of others. So I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, so I'm by no means an expert in American law, and I will try not to be smug and Canadian about this. Here we have really toothy human rights laws that cover all of this, and no employer can discriminate against any employee for any of these reasons. I did a little looking up on the ADA, and my understanding is that the ADA covers employment situations that I think are more than 5 or something like that. So if it's a very small employer, you're not really afforded much protections. So then I did a little survey state by state of human rights organizations, the sort of legislated organizations. And I found, frankly, a lot of diversity between different states on what protections are afforded. So I think that, I knew this was going to come up, and it's a difficult question to answer. I think it really is a case by case kind of thing. And, your best bet, if you're concerned, is first to know what laws exist that might protect you. Although getting into a human rights battle or a disability battle is never pleasant, but it is important to stand up for our rights. And make sure that you understand, the policies that are in place in your employer. If you're not at the point where you're applying for a job, if you already have the job, make sure you understand what employment policies govern your employment. Sometimes it's going to be in a contract, sometimes it's going to be in policies, that sort of thing. But, we're not at the point, I think, in both countries, because like I say, I used to be a human rights officer, and so I saw employment complaints about disability even here. So there are certainly employers that don't act responsibly when it comes to employees with disabilities or conditions like ours. At the same time, I'm aware that there are, some really big companies that take great steps to not just accommodate, but to seek out employees. with disabilities and with different conditions. My own brother works for a very large company that builds defense equipment for the United States and for Canada. And the company that he works for, despite the fact that it's a private for-profit company, they go out of their way to accommodate employees with different needs, whether that's working remotely or office accommodations. It's really kind of heartwarming. So I know there are employers out there that will take those steps and measures, but barring that, I think you have to do your own research in the state that you're in or the jurisdiction that you're in and understand what protections you have.
Yep, I echo that. I think we all wish it was as simple as you are 100% protected and no employer can ever take that away from you. The reality is that it can get murky, unfortunately. So yes, I think that is very good advice there from Darren. Kayberg had another question as well, and then we're going to go to Denise next. So from Kayberg, we're always wearing my mask, try to avoid people in the office who are sick, but I have to go to in-person meetings. So I'm always worried about getting sick, and I know we can all relate to that. How do you all handle working around others? For a long time, I double masked. I worked I laughed because this was during basically coming out of COVID. I worked in a studio that was in the middle of a casino in Las Vegas. So probably the last place you would want to be as somebody with vasculitis. But that was my strategy. I was very vigilant. Definitely still am on the road and understanding that there are certain times of the year where you're going to be more susceptible to that. And it's something that I know I can't really afford to miss a show or a game because I'm getting paid by the game and by the show, and I'm not under, I'm an independent contractor. So I think being vigilant is honestly just the best thing you can do. I'm fascinated, Kara, for your perspective, because maybe even worse than a Las Vegas casino is the giant petri dish, which is a elementary school. I kind of shudder at that thought, especially in the Midwest around this time of year. So what sort of measures have you found that have been helpful for you over the years?
All right, there we go. I wash my hands a ton. In fact, they're really cracked and dry right now because I wash them about 12 times a day. I keep sanitary wipes in my classroom, like Clorox type of wipes. I wipe the table down between every group of kids that comes to see me. I do keep extra masks at school. I probably have 20 or 30 of them. And I tend to wear them more like right now, the illness level is really high. So I have been wearing them more at school when I'm in a small group situation. So yeah, lots of hand sanitizing, lots of table sanitizing. I have the kids wash their hands a lot, and I tell them it's to protect me and you. That way you don't get sick, I don't get sick. And they're really understanding about it. My coworkers, I'm pretty open with them. They know that I have to watch my germ level. And so a lot of them will not sit near me at lunch. They'll be like, hey, I have a cold, or I just got over the flu and I don't want to make you sick. So I'm going to sit at this other table today, or I'll sit at this other table for the meeting. And that has been helpful, but lots of hand washing, lots of hand washing.
That appears to, yes, I'm not surprised that is the theme there. Kara had that. For Eric, Antoine, anything else you guys wanted to add on that before we go to?
I think Clara stole my thunder because I was going to say hand washing. I've been a paramedic for a long time, and before COVID, we hardly ever wore masks. Now we all wear masks. So, and someone asked a question about supplies. I'm lucky the fire department gives me a lot of supplies for that kind of stuff, but I don't know how that works for other people. But yeah, hand washing that goes a long way. And the other thing I noticed too, and I don't think anybody's ever mentioned it, is it cuts like you cutting your hand, cutting your feet, or when you're out working. I cut myself a lot, and I found that I've gotten more infections this past year with vasculitis than I've ever had. Normally it's like cut myself doing something, and you spit on it, rub some dirt on it, and go your merry way. Now it's kind of not like that. It's I wash, and I gotta get some antibiotic cream on it so I don't get an infection. So that's something else to consider too. I don't know how many people here do like framing work or work in construction, but that'd be something I would think about, or be more vigilant with gloves and stuff, long shirts. That's it.
No doubt. Karen, there was a kind of follow up there from Denise. Does your school have it in place? Like, are you paying for that those supplies on your own, or does the school handle it?
Thankfully, the school handles it. Ever since the pandemic, we've put it on the school supply list that parents donate a container of wipes. And so I have those. We also required the students to bring a bottle of hand sanitizer. So, when 25 kids bring those 25 containers in, that gets you through for a while. But my school also does heavy duty sanitation during the illness season. They use some bleach-based products because right now we have the norovirus and the flu and some pneumonia going around. And so my school also sanitizes the kids' desks and the door handles and the light switches. And I do everything else, but they are very thorough about that in my district.
That is a nice thing to have, being thorough in the district. Denise, would also.
Yeah, for me, before we go on, for me, Ben, I think, I have to purchase the supplies myself. So I typically buy them in bulk. Whether it's, disposable mask, hand sanitizer, or the Clorox wipes. And you got to have, either some travel, whether it's the tray on an airplane that you're wiping down, or when you get to the hotel, certain things you're wiping down just to be safe there. And so usually you get them in bulk. And so far I haven't gone through it all. So I just have to keep, that's just a necessary evil now, just having those things on hand. And then the antibacterial band-aids and antibiotics and stuff in case I cut myself. I have something readily available. And then in case of a flare-up or something would happen while I'm on the road, I keep a supply of prednisone in case I need it. So that's kind of what I do.
I very much advocate for having some prednisone whenever I'm on the road, just in case. You just as kind of a sort of a backup. The writing things off is your friend when you're self-employed like me. So I write all that stuff off. Nobody can take that away from me. That's my game plan. I was just going to say too, Janice had asked, have any of you had experiences with employers discriminating? Unfortunately, none for me. Has anybody actually had experiences with that? I see a lot of shakes of the head to the no, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Fortunately, and also I'd add to Jennifer did put in a couple links which are in the chat right now, which are super helpful. Kind of to the question earlier we were talking about, what rights you do have, and it really is just kind of on a case by case, state by state basis that Darren was talking about as well. A couple different people, I think 3 different people, Brett, Johanna, I know for sure have asked about. Have any of you changed your diet, and what kind of diet are you specifically following? If so, here, any special diets, any sort of foods you stay away from, which is a great question. I don't really have anything specific. I've kind of just tried to focus on eating really, just healthy in general, and being very kind of vigilant on that front. But Antoine, if you want to start, I know you mentioned some stuff in the chat there. Anything?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off, Ben. So for me, first of all, let me say that, first of all, everybody body is different. And so with that being said, I've heard that, diet doesn't have a direct impact on vasculitis here or there from different people and doctors. For me, what I did when I first was diagnosed, I changed my diet. I went to a more of a Mediterranean diet, basically fish, vegetables, etc. And then I just got rid of everything. I used to drink a lot of coffee. Dr. Pepper was my friend. I could have done a commercial with Dr. Pepper. That was my staple. But I got rid of everything caffeinated that was causing any type of inflammation because I had GPA. And at the time I had some pneumonia too. And so I just stripped out dairy, the whole nine. And so I just kind of went through this withdrawal period with my body to get used to not having any of that in my system. The caffeine was the biggest thing, the withdrawal from the caffeine. But once I cleared everything out, I do a lot of water. I try to do my, enough water, depending on your body weight and ounces, that whole math equation. You guys can see that on the internet, how much water to drink. I drink that religiously. And then I also do pH water as well, just to help boost the pH in my system. to keep my immune system working well. And I found that those things, and then I do some, the other specialty things like I'll do inflammation smoothies. I'll do it's called green juice that's out there, and I love beet juice, things like that. Just things that, trust me, I never in my lifetime thought I'd be drinking or eating, because I was a strictly meat and potato kind of guy. That was me. And it seems to work for me as long as I keep the inflammation low in my body. My body feels well. Like I said, the biggest thing with me was the caffeine. Just not having the caffeine in my system, it seemed to work for me. And so far, like I said, I've been doing this for a year and a half now, just with the diet. And of course, you lose a lot of weight when you do it, as well, which was, I added bonus because of prednisone makes you gain a lot of weight. So I was able to get rid of a lot of prednisone weight by just, detoxing. So again, I'll go back to my first statement. Every body is different. So bodies is different. So just take that with a grain of salt. I'm not a doctor. That's just what works for me. And this is kind of what I continue to do until it doesn't work.
Love it. And I'm so glad it has worked for you, Antoine. Anybody else have anything specific that they've done as far as dieting, special foods, things like that?
I had kidney involvement as one of my primary symptoms, so I definitely had to change my diet, had to go low sodium. I had to increase my water intake, but I also went a lot more plant-based. But my family still likes to eat meat. And so my breakfast and lunch are plant-based, and then my dinner is usually whatever the rest of my family is having. I will say I cut out my red meat in a significant amount. So I rarely have red meat anymore. I have some chicken, some fish, but I have made most of my diet more plant-based just because it's supposed to be less inflammatory and easier on my kidneys.
And I've heard from a number of people that has been certainly a benefit. And like we said, we kind of caveat all this with everybody's difference. We're not saying this should be a blanket applied to everybody, but that's great to hear as well, Kara. Got one more. I think we have time for one more question. I think this will be a good way to wrap it up. And again, can't thank enough all of you for being a part of this webinar. We've had great involvement. We got Memphis, San Francisco, Nebraska, Wisconsin. A lot of different places here represented tonight, and Denise is in Chicago, I believe, I assume based on your question, on leave right now from work and probably for a while. Denise is asking, I'm afraid I will never feel comfortable returning to my career as a Chicago public high school assistant principal. How do you handle guilt, changes in your ethics, etc., with work? Which is a great question. It's I think it's very unique as well. I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that particular question. Kara, I don't know, since you're in the same world there as a teacher, any thoughts on that? We'll start it off with you.
I think you have to consider what your stress level is with your job. I'm assuming principals have some additional stress simply because of the nature of the job, dealing in administration with people. I really, really, really wanted to come back, but my school is a positive environment. So I knew I could probably manage my stress there pretty well because just how well everyone gets along and how supportive my administration is. I also had my family support. And I also knew that I was going to have to take really good care of myself in order for me to continue working. But if you are someone who is working in a high stress situation, that would be a difficult call to make, I think.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, at least for me, it might be, I don't know, like not necessarily controversial to say this, but I kind of felt like, and again, this with being in the context of my career and my industry being very, very competitive, no one's going to feel sorry for you that you've got to deal with this. And I kind of looked at it as like, hey, I went through this. I was able to come out on the other side, and I dealt with the 80 milligrams of prednisone a day and the moon face of the Cytoxin and all that all that crap. If I'm going to come out of it, like I'm going to do what I have to do. I'm going to put myself first. I don't really care, whether I might take whether I'm going to do things that maybe others wouldn't, because I know I got to put my body first, and I'm going to fight really hard for myself financially because I know how much I've got a handle on my own because of medications, because of insurance, and how much more I've got to pay than the average person. So, have I felt any remorse about trying to take advantage of networks and trying to take it, use that to my advantage to get the most out of it? Absolutely not. I don't have any remorse about it. Or even if you could maybe say, well, is that really the, to a T, the right thing and the right way to do things and advance in your career? Again, my situation's unique because there are about a cajillion people who would love to just talk about sports for a living, and you kind of have to dig your teeth in, and really look out for yourself at the same time. But I think it's something we've all kind of thought about, Denise, and I'm really glad you asked it. That's personally how I approach it, and it's worked for me. I'm curious if anybody says thoughts on that too.
Yeah, I'll just add that when I was first diagnosed and on the high doses of prednisone and pretty ill, I was working, but not really working. I wasn't really capable of doing the full load of my job. And, there at the time was only 3 of us doing my job with a backlog of roughly 400 files. So for me to be effectively offline for months, it was really hard to take. And I felt a lot of guilt because I knew that, this was all landing on the shoulders of my coworkers who are friends. We all do the same job, and it's not always an easy job. And I actually ended up seeking counseling because there's so many aspects of being diagnosed with an illness like this. There's grief, there's guilt, there's fear, there's all of these things. And yeah, I ended up deciding that I needed counseling to work through that, and it was immensely helpful.
I think for me, Ben, I know we're wrapping up here, but for me, that initial phase was tough because I'm a type of person, I'm a go-getter. And when I initially got diagnosed and was sick, people wrote me off. But the good thing about it, I didn't write back. And so I was excited about getting back into the game. I knew that it would be a tough haul, and so stress is a part of everybody's life. And I know for our disease, stress has a lot of ways of impacting us. It's managing that stress, putting those guardrails up, having a game plan, and you know yourself better. So for me, I have my threshold. If it ever gets too much, I walk away from the game because my health and my life is worth more to me than any job that I could ever do. But I knew that I still had it in me to do the job. And so, right now, I just try to do the necessary precautions to make sure that, I'm a gamer, that I'm gonna stay in the game, and I'm going to do the best I can given the parameters that I have, which may be different from everybody else, but I'm still going to do it the best I can. So hang in there. Getting on the other side is a great feeling, but on that initial side, it can be rough. But know that there is joy on the other side.
Very well said, no doubt. And I think we've all probably been in situations where if you've been diagnosed, like at least for me, like there was a certain time where I was laying in a hospital bed thinking, all right, am I ever going to be able to, broadcast? I'm 20 at the time. Like, am I ever going to be able to do what I really want? And so I always go back to that feeling in that moment. If it's a tough time and it's kind of understanding, like, there you might be you might be overworked. There's stress that's certainly involved. To Anton's point, like I always kind of feel like for us, we've all had that resolve within our individual stories, where there's usually something you can go back to that mentally kind of helps you get through whatever is going on in the moment. So at least that's kind of how I try to think of it mentally as well. Eric, anything you want to add on that, and then we'll get out of here and let everybody go on their way.
Not really, but I can't really remember her question. But I think it was something about feeling guilty about going back to working or something like that. But I think all 3 or 4 of you said the same thing. Is like going back to work was important to me. It was almost like I felt like, I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm 54 years old. I'm doing a job that's made for 24-year-olds. And I just wanted to prove like, okay, I can get over this. I can get back to work. And And I remember the doctor saying this is going to take 8 months. And I didn't believe him. And I didn't, at first I felt guilty for taking those 8 months. Like I was in July going, this is ridiculous. In August, this is ridiculous. But when September rolled around, I was like, you know something, I can see that I'm weak and I can see that I'm making progress. And I can see that, this is what I need to do. And I didn't feel an ounce of guilt about it, honestly, nothing. Like even the day before I went back to work, and I had that one more day before I went back to work, I wasn't guilty about being home. I was like, this was my time, and I took my time. And like I said at the beginning, that was my job in July to get ready for going back to work and get my mind squared away and letting people know that I worked with, like especially closely worked with, maybe not everybody, but like if you're sick, let me know. Like, so I can make plans and even people that I'm in, like I gotta like document what they're out sick and they're not supposed to tell me why they're sick. Like I kind of want to know for a personal reason. You know what I mean? Like this isn't the city asking. This isn't your boss asking. This is like, hey, should I be, are you home throwing up? Like, am I going to be going through that next week? You know what I mean? Like, you just let me know. So, I mean, that she's feeling guilty about stuff. I mean, don't feel guilty, own it, and just, and be like, this is the new normal, right? I mean, this is what it is. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've only been dealing with it for 11 months. So I don't know. But this is how I feel. Is like, I got to figure it out. And I don't feel guilty at all. I don't care. I tell them to pound sand.
I like that concept. And it's a process for all of us, 100%. And I think everybody who hears sounds like from a lot of our chats and comments and questions, like a lot of you all have kind of felt the same way we do, and you're in the workforce and you're trying to figure it out. And I think just that alone, the fact that we've been able to all collectively do that and be able to have a career, do what we love, and support ourselves and our families, is an unbelievably huge accomplishment in its own right. And it's, I think it shouldn't be lost on all of us how special that is. And I think and that's why having this community is great. So certainly want to thank Jennifer, Joyce, everybody at the VF who helped set this up. Darren, you had your initial idea, and it certainly came to fruition in a big way. I know we're all happy to always provide resources if at any time if anybody has any further questions. Again, in the chat too, we've got a couple of the links there that Jennifer provided. So certainly encourage everybody to check that out. And it's really been a blast, a privilege being in this panel and just hearing so many different perspectives from all of us. In a way, we're all very different in what we do and what our day-to-day looks like, but at the same time, we're all really kind of just the same. I mean, we're dealing with the same stuff. It just applies in a different way. So for Kara, Darren, Eric, and Antoine, it's really been a pleasure being on with all of you guys. And I wish everybody continued health, success in their respective work as we go here into 2025. And thank you again for making this webinar a part of your night, and appreciate all of the comments as well. It's really nice to know too that our stories can have an impact, and I think that's what makes this community so special. So I think that'll be the last word. We hope to see you soon. I know we're planning more of these webinars and trying to have them more frequently. So can't thank you all enough for being part of it, and we hope to see you all soon.